In this chapter, the object is to show how you can create an epic finale. This should be the kind of music that would be used at the end of a film or a documentary. So, we have prepared something in advance, and we can listen to it now. One thing we noticed straight away is that this trailer contains a fairly typical orchestral layout. There are a few instruments that might not be considered standard, but in general it uses the standard orchestra-style instrumentation. The main development in this trailer is the harmonic development. Previously, we have seen how we can develop a theme by layering instruments over time, or by using ostinato patterns, for example. If we look at the score for this example, we can see that the chord progression is certainly not repetitive. Previously, we have had examples that only had a relatively simple repetitive chord progression. We can listen to the chord progression using the legato strings from the Albion library. At this point in our example, we change key by moving down a semitone from the B-flat chord to the A minor chord. Over this new section, the melody has been changed somewhat, and this melody lifts the piece somewhat, and so we have a variety of harmonic changes taking place throughout the arrangement. This example shows that by changing the harmony of an arrangement, you open up many avenues to explore. We can see this by following the score while playing the arrangement. The opening theme is played on a horn, which is very typical for this style. Now, at the change to the A minor chord, the strings are added to the theme. At the next change, we bring in some timpani. Also, at this point, we can hear a choir. Finally, we end on a crescendo that could and possibly should be longer. One method of creating growth in this type of arrangement is that when we change harmonies or key, we bring in a new group of instruments. If we start at the beginning, we start with some spiccato strings, which give us movement over the chords. This section is clearly not an ostinato section, as there is too much movement in it. If we listen, we can hear that I have chosen a soft spiccato sound. We can also notice that a melody is contained within this section. And it is enhanced by the melody that the Albion brass is playing. So, let's listen to the spiccato strings and the mid-brass section. In our opinion, the Albion Brass Library is one of the best for creating this kind of realistic arrangement. If we were just to have the strings here, it would not sound at all as realistic. And if we listen to the low brass section, we can hear just how much it fills out the sound stage, and it combines perfectly with the Albion strings. In general, we can say that the Albion 1 library has exceptional quality for its price. Now we can see the next section. And in this section we develop the arrangement by bringing in the woodwinds, and these layer the brass and the legato strings by doubling the melody. The only additional instruments we have here are a couple of cymbals, and these are used sparingly. we can see that you don't actually need to have a large number of instruments to create an epic feel. Subtle use of the cymbals and layering the brass woodwinds and strings already creates quite a powerful theme, especially as we are playing with the harmonies rather than simply adding more and more instrumentation. The next section is somewhat darker in mood. It's only 4 bars long, and in reality I would probably choose to have it longer. But for this example it is merely there to show what you can do with harmonies. This section drops down a little in the sense that the melody disappears. However, we add timpani, and we use a very typical timpani pattern. Now we have the impact library again, creating an accent on the 1. The toms come in, as does the full orchestra with choir. I have used the usual trick of playing 3 toms at once during the tom pattern. If you look at the score, you can see that we have a bar of 2/4, and for this reason my patterns don't start on the first beat here, but in the 3rd beat, after the bar of 2/4. If we listen without the toms, it still sounds good, but by bringing them back in, we really get some extra rhythm and power. And right at the end we have a ritardando that was played in by hand rather than by adjusting the sequencer's tempo track. It's worth mentioning that although some arrangers or composers might play everything into a tempo track, I find it easier to simply play over the click and create my ritardandos whilst playing the music in. Right at the end we have a typical crescendo rising from virtually nothing and reaching its climax with a cymbal and a timpani roll. Building up to the climax, the timpani are playing the root notes of the chords. And then we can see the roll. In my opinion, it was a little bit weak, so I'll simply edit it with the mouse. By increasing the dynamics of this timpani roll, we have certainly created a more detailed and richer feel to end the piece with. All of these details are important, but to be honest, the main thing to take from this chapter is the use of harmony and key changes to create growth and dynamics in our epic finale.